everyone, welcome back to Bookish Nook. So I know it's been a while since I did another video, except this past month has been super crazy, but I was able to read quite a bit of books, so this is going to be a bit of a longer episode, so let's just dive in. First book that I read was The Red Pyramid by Rick Riordan. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars. It was a fantastic beginning introduction to the trilogy. I'm really into Egyptian mythology to begin with, so this book was just great for me. It's no Percy Jackson, but it's still great. The second book that I read, I received from the author in exchange for an honest review, and that was Crashing Souls by Cynthia Rodriguez. I ended up giving this a 3.5 stars out of 5. This follows a man named Dexter as he's given a second chance on life and love as he is tasked with the mission of finding his soulmate, who is in a different person now, like a different body, and convincing her to fall in love with him, etc. It was a pretty decent read. I enjoyed it. This book is written in dual perspective, which it's not your traditional dual perspective where it's one chapter and it kind of alternates. The first half of the book is written from Dexter's perspective and the second half is written from his love interest perspective. I enjoyed the second half a million times more. I connected with it more. Something about it was just so much better to me, and it feels like a completely different book, and that is not a bad thing at all. It's really impressive that the author was able to create a different feel, tone, and writing style between each halves to sort of it just shows that they are different characters, and I just was able to connect with the second half much better. So I would definitely recommend reading this book if it sounds interesting to you, because it is pretty good. So then the Booktubeathon happened, and I had my week set out. I had my shifts all ready to go at work, and it fit perfectly with the Booktubeathon, and then I was asked to stay later for a few of my shifts, and then that just threw off my whole reading schedule. So I only ended up reading 2 books and 2 comic book bind-ups. So the first book that I read was The Truth About Forever by Sarah Dessen. I ended up giving this a 4.5 stars out of 5. I was super impressed with it. This was my first Sarah Dessen book. It was really great because it focuses more on friends and friendship and family rather than the romance aspect, and that's really great. I love contemporary stories about, like high school students who focus more on the friendship and the family and, the people around you who love you but not in a romantic way. So I cannot wait to dive into more Sarah Dessen. The second book that I read was Untold by Sarah Reeds Brennan, which is the second book in the Lindburn legacy. I ended up giving this a 4 stars out of 5. It was really great. The snappy and witty writing was there. Loved that. That's my favorite part of reading these books. The plot wasn't as convoluted as the first one, and it was much easier to follow, and I enjoyed the storyline much better in that one. So I cannot wait to continue with the last book. And the 2 comics that I read were Why the Last Man, Volume 1 and 2 by Brian K. Vaughan. I ended up giving the first one a 5 out of 5 stars. It was absolutely fantastic, and the second one I ended up giving 4 stars just because I didn't really like some of the writing choices, just some of the lines that were said, and then kind of where the plot is going. Although I am going to keep reading the series once I find time to go to the library and pick up the rest. If you don't know what this is about a man and his monkey who are the last living males on the planet. Everyone else died, and it's just the rest is all women, and it is really funny to watch him just trying to live in a world full of women, and it was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. The next book that I ended up reading was Forever Odd by Dean Koontz. This is the second book in the Odd Thomas series. One of my coworkers, this is his favorite series of all time, so I've been giving it a go. I really enjoyed the first one. It's witty, it's funny, the writing is on point, but I was saddened to see and to read the sequel was just awful to me. I really was incredibly disappointed. I ended up giving it a 2 stars rating because the plot was just, the mystery was just flat. It felt like a TV episode rather than a book. The writing was just nowhere near the perfection of the first one. Like, the author would go on these tangents in the story about things that were irrelevant to the plot, things that never came back later in the plot that I thought would. So it got to the point where I was just skipping pages to get to dialogue because it was just so boring. So I don't know if I'm going to continue with this series because I was incredibly disappointed. Next up, I ended up reading Scorched by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. It was absolutely fantastic. It follows a woman who has alcohol problems, and she goes on a mini vacation with her two friends who are a couple, and then the other guy is there, and they sort of have a romance going on. But it also focuses on her alcoholic sort of tendencies, and then her trying to figure out how to beat them, and working on herself before she can give herself over to another person. And it was really great. Armentrout handled the alcoholism topic really great. It didn't feel like she was shoving it in her face that her character is flawed, look at my character is flawed. It was just something that was going on with her, and that's what it was. And it wasn't used as like a plot device to push the story along. It was just really well handled. Next up, I read Starbreak by Phoebe North, which is the second and final book to Starglass, which I did a complete video review. Starbreak was disappointing. I ended up giving it a 2-star rating. The first quarter of the book was fantastic. It described the world in such vivid colors, and it was just this otherworldly place, and it was great. But then the last 3 quarters of the book just were weird. They were really weird, and I didn't like where the story went. It's insta-love, and it's a weird insta-love, and it's like the character from the first book was like a completely different character because all she cared about was loving this guy, and that was all that was like her sole focus. All her internal thoughts were, I have to get to him, oh, I love him, I hope he stays with me, I love it. And it was so annoying. The first book had a main character who was strong and independent, and she just knew what she wanted, and she was fighting for it. And then this is just, I don't know what to do with it. The only reason I gave it a 2-star was because of the beginning. But if the beginning didn't capture me, I would have given it a 1-star and probably not finished it. But yeah, so I don't know if I'd recommend reading the first one because the second one is such a disappointment. Next up, to bring me out of that slump, I read You Were Mine by Abby Glines, which is the 8th book, I believe, in the Rosemary Beach series, and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. So happy that I bought this book. I went through a huge struggle with Kobo customer support because they had given me a $5 coupon and I used it, but it didn't give me the coupon, so I was charged the whole price. And these ebooks are not cheap. They're like $12 a piece. That's ridiculous for something I can't touch. But either way, I'm glad I ended up keeping it and reading it because this book was fantastic. It follows Bethany and Tripp's story, and their story is heartbreakingly beautiful and amazing, and it just captured my attention. I think I read this in one sitting. So if you haven't started the Rosemary Beach series, definitely do it. I know it's a little daunting because there's so many books in this series, but it's really worth it. Next up, I read Something Beautiful by Jamie Maguire, which is part of the Beautiful Disaster series, I think it's called. But this follows America and Shepley's story, and I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. I was actually pretty disappointed with it. I went into this book expecting their origin romance story, just how they got together, and you get that, but in the first chapter. And then the rest is the future, and they're living in a building across from Abby and Travis, and it's this weird setup, I don't know, and then there's a storm and they go, and I don't know. It was really disappointing. Next up, I read Every Last Breath by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which is the 3rd and final book in the Dark Elements trilogy. I ended up giving this a 4 stars. It was good. I enjoyed the conclusion. The conclusion was satisfying and there wasn't any loose ends and blah blah blah. But I just didn't like it as much as the first two, and I think with this trilogy for me, I liked living in the world and the setup before the conclusion. So that's why I didn't really like it as much. And if you thought that she was going to end up with a certain someone over a certain someone, I don't know what book you were reading, because in the first book it was obvious who she would end up with, even despite the fans voting, but either way. Except I read The Martian by Andy Weir. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars, and it was absolutely fantastic. If you've seen the trailer for it with Matt Damon and that interested you, definitely go read the book because it is phenomenal. It is really science heavy in the fact that the main character explains what he's doing, and a lot of the times it's really science heavy stuff. He's making water from the hydrogen atoms and the oxygen atoms, and it's just crazy, but it's explained in a really piecemeal sort of easy fashion without you feeling like someone is explaining it to a complete idiot. It was just really good. It's witty, it's funny, it is fantastic, and I cannot wait to see the movie, so definitely go read it before you see the movie. Next up, I read Quiroz Emily, also by Abby Glines, which is the free novella, and this follows Quiro, one of the people in the Slacker Demon band, and his love story with Emily, who is Harlow's parents. Wow, that was weird. I didn't like Hiro whatsoever from the beginning to the end of the novella, but I do understand him as a character now in the present tense of the books. I didn't like that kind of romance. That's not my kind of thing, but I did really enjoy just understanding the characters and having that. It's a novella, it was free, so I mean, what are you gonna do? I still really enjoyed it, and it's still worth reading. Next up, I read volume 1 and 2 of Sega by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. I'm rereading these because I am completely lost. I have the fourth and the fifth volume in like comic book form to read, and I couldn't remember what happened in the story, so I said, I'm just gonna reread it. So I did. I reread the first two. 5 out of 5 stars, of course. They're amazing. They're so much better, I think, when you reread them, just because you can catch a little bit of the setup. Like in the first actual issue, there's so much setup for like the future that you don't even realize, and it was great. So yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. The last thing that I read was the Future Collection by Beth Revis, which is a collection of sci-fi short stories that she wrote, and they are absolutely fantastic. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars, and I was incredibly impressed. They're just these great little snippets of a story that has actually significant world building for the story. Some of them are like 25 pages, and it just feels like it's a scene ripped out of a book, a larger book. And I just really wish that these short stories were actual books, because they're really fantastic. So if you're looking for something quick and sci-fi to read, definitely give the Future Collection a shot, because Beth Revis is actually a phenomenal writer, and people should read her books more often. So as you can probably guess, I am currently reading Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas right now. I am about 200 pages into it, and I still hate the witches chapters. Like, I cannot stand the witches chapters. Like, every time I get to them, I gotta like put the book down, take a breath, maybe play a level on my stupid bubble game that I'm playing on the iPad, then go back to it. I don't know, they just bother me. But their chapters, I noticed, as the book progresses, are getting slightly more interesting to me, so hopefully that helps. The book is just really fantastic so far. The pacing is really great. It's a little bit faster than Air of Fire, which I'm really thankful for, because that's one of the reasons I didn't like Air of Fire so much, is because the pacing was so different from the previous books, and this one is more similar to the previous books. So yeah, that is what I'm currently reading. I will put up my September TBR hopefully Friday, if not Saturday. So yeah, let me know down below what you read in the month of August. Thanks for watching.